Welcome to the Math Ed Podcast. My name is Sam Otten from the University of Missouri, and my guest is Dr. Mario Sanchez Aguilar, who's from the Mathematics Education Program at the National Polytechnic Institute in Mexico City, Mexico. So, Mario, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
We're going to be talking about a special issue that Mario and some colleagues helped put together in ZDM, Mathematics Education. But we're also particularly going to be talking about Mario's co-authored article in that special issue itself. And that article is called Latin American Research on Mathematics Education, a Narrative Review. So this is an ambitious article that took on some big ideas, and it kind of goes through some history and some development of ideas and traces them back to various parts of Latin America and how they've contributed to math ed literature. So a fascinating piece, and it leans into a very fascinating special issue in ZDM. But before we get into that, let me just pause for a second for a little bit of background. So first of all, Mario, just to help us get to know you a little bit better, where did you do your graduate studies, and with whom did you work while you were in grad school?
Yes, I did a master's degree, Sam, on mathematics education research in a research center here in Mexico City called Sinvestav.
Mhm.
Is the oldest place where you can study math education in this country.
At PMENA, there's always a lot of folks from Civic staff here.
Exactly. And my supervisor was a lady called Rosa Maria Farfan. And then I went to Denmark to do my PhD at Roskilde University in Denmark. And my supervisor is a guy called Martin Blomhoy. Has done some contributions on mathematical modeling and
Mm.
project-based learning and this kind of things.
Oh, wow. And then after Denmark, back to Mexico, or?
Yes, exactly. To now to the National Polytechnic Institute is where I have a permanent position as a professor. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Just one more thing back there in memory lane when we're looking back. What did you do for your dissertation? What was the brief topic there?
Oh yeah, it was something I think it was called how to stimulate rich interactions in online mathematics teacher education. It was a design-oriented dissertation on how to design online courses
Okay,
in order to promote reflections on teachers and promote teacher development, something like that. Some, yeah.
wonderful. All right, well, let's go ahead into this new ZDM issue that's out and talk about some Latin American research on math ed. So we're in volume 57 of ZDM, but first of all, with the special issue overall, where you brought together a lot of different scholars and edited and put them through review to put them in the special issue. How did the special issue originate? Like, what was the idea that got that started? And then, if readers go check out that special issue, what are they going to find in there?
So this special issue, the origin of this issue is from ongoing conversations and observations about the unequal representation of math education research communities and their work in prestigious journals and in the global research arena in general. There are some statistics that are published in some editorials in big journals that illustrates the predominance of regions such as Europe, North America, Australia, Israel, in influential journals and international academic spaces more broadly. And with my colleagues, Johnny Alexander Villaochoa from Colombia and Marcelo Borba from Brazil, we thought that it was important to pursue the publication of an special issue on a journal like CDM that could showcase some of the research conducted in Latin America and try to promote more diversity of ideas and educational concerns in our field. In the particular case of Latin America, even though it's a region that has a long and rich tradition in mathematics education research, much of the work produced in this region remains invisible in global academic spaces. So that's like the origin of these special issues.
Yeah, that's a very worthwhile effort, and it's great to see it coming to fruition. And hopefully, it starts, more things after this too that can follow up and can cite this work
Yeah.
and start to bring more visibility to it. You also have your particular article that you wrote with those colleagues about the Latin American research, and you're doing a narrative review across the math ed research and scholarly ideas that came from Latin America. How did you set about that task? Because literature reviews are hard enough on their own.
Yeah.
And I've done a little bit of like trying to do a systematic literature review, but often there's like a guiding topic, and that helps you really narrow down to a small set of articles or a manageable set of articles. But you kind of were looking at a broad range of ideas from Latin America. How did you actually do that work and conceive of it? It's an impressive feat.
Yeah, yes. At the beginning, we thought on the possibility of doing a systematic one, a systematic review, but then we decided to conduct a narrative review. This because the Latin American research on math education is very diverse and multilingual, and is dispersed across local journals and forums that are often overlooked by standard like indexing systems. So we thought if we used like the traditional channels for doing this kind of review, looking into like a big index and like Web of Science, like,
Yeah, you're going to fall into that same marginalization that you talked about at the beginning.
exactly.
Like those systems have the marginalization
Exactly.
built in
So
already.
we thought, well, we could ground a review in our collective experience as researchers and editors. And Johnny Alexander from Colombia and Marcelo, these guys are very experienced in the regions, and they are editors of journals, and so they have this like overview of the region and what is produced in this region. And we are also engaged in different research communities and conferences and collaborative networks. So that was also the goal, Sam, was not to map everything. Actually, that was very, very fast. We realized that that was kind of difficult. So what we decided to do is to highlight some key conceptual contributions, key theoretical frameworks from the region, and also dialogues with international frameworks that characterize the regions.
Yeah. And I will say the article is open access, so I encourage everybody to grab this and take a look at it. And it's really fascinating to see how you put it together. And I'll, of course, have you talk about it a bit more in a second. But for me, as a reader, it was fascinating because there were some ideas and some frameworks that originated from the Latin American scholars.
Yes,
And it was like, wow, they brought this idea forward. And some of them I've heard of, some of them I hadn't quite heard of as much. But then you also tell a little bit of the story about how some of the ideas that were maybe from Europe or from the United States, they've been taken in deeper directions, or they've been applied in different contexts, or they've been expanded. And at least for me, it was like, wow, I wasn't aware that there has been this development of the idea
yes,
and more nuances, and the ideas have been pushed forward in Latin America that maybe wasn't getting back to the US or not back to Europe, or at least
yes.
speaking for myself. So it was interesting to see both of those things. But let me hear it from you, of course. What were some of the key ideas that emerged as you were doing the narrative review and that readers can see in that article?
Yes, I will say there are several key ideas. A first key idea is that as you said, Latin American scholars have developed original theoretical frameworks. Examples of these are ethnomathematics. I think this is a prime example. Humans with media, socio-epistemology. These are like key examples. And these approaches are grounded in local practices and realities rather than just adapting or importing other theories. And that's one key idea. Another key idea is that the researchers in this region engage with the international frameworks. For example, the APOS theory that was originally from the US, Ed Dubinsky and all these people.
Yeah, and just in case listeners aren't sure, that's the action process object schema. So some folks might have heard of it, but might not have delved into it. But yeah, that's a well-known one that
Yeah,
has been developed. Yeah.
thank you, Sam. And also, for instance, the entosemiotic approach that comes from Spain, or mathematical working spaces, or anthropological theory of the didactics. And but these scholars, they engage with these frameworks like critically, and they are, as you said, trying to expand these theories, but through put them into practice in new context, or addressing new questions and using new methodological approaches. This is a second key idea, Sam. Another key idea is that there is I will say, a strong and growing interest in issues related with equity, inclusion, power, epistemic justice. And many of these studies explicitly address marginalized populations and challenge the idea that mathematics education and mathematics education research is neutral or value free. That's another key idea. And another key idea that I will highlight is that the energy of this region and also the structural challenge that this region and the researchers from this region face, particularly in terms of visibility, language barriers, and unequal access to academic recognition.
Yeah, and that's interesting too. Just as you're talking, I'm kind of thinking on the two levels because some of the work in Latin America, like you talked about, it talks about marginalization and it talks about in a context to try to make sure that the mathematical learning opportunities can be reaching more students, that teachers are supported in doing that. So there can kind of be this like marginalization or harm that's done in math education in specific local contexts, and we're trying to work through those and make positive math experiences. But then there's also the global context, like you were saying at the beginning, about Latin America itself is kind of put at a disadvantage because of English only journals or because of the databases being centered in Germany or the US having all the money that they're spending on all of this research.
Yes.
And so there's kind of like I'm seeing the importance of hearing from the Latin American perspective, both on the ground with students in math teaching situations, but also at the kind of global scale of how we're doing and sharing our research as well.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. And it's also sometimes difficult to be heard or published in these top journals when you don't use like these well-established theoretical
Oh,
frameworks
right,
or
right.
approaches. If you come with this, like, oh, look at this new framework, this is very difficult to
Right.
get.
If you cite the things that everybody else cites, then you can kind of make it right through the review. But if you're
Yes,
citing something and the reviewers don't know what you're talking about, it
yes.
might be a brilliant idea that's giving good insights, but the reviewers are kind of unfamiliar and they're like, I'm not sure what this is.
Exactly, exactly. And you don't always find reviewers. Of course, there are very constructive reviewers, of course,
Mhm,
but there are
mhm.
some that are not willing to actually try to understand you, right? They
Yeah.
just want to use their tools, their methodologies. Otherwise, as you said,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to convince them. Yeah,
Well, and this is maybe a topic for another day, but I feel like there's also reviewers that what they're doing is they're checking whether they agree with the author.
yeah,
And if they agree with the author, then they say accept. And if they disagree, they say reject. And I'm like, no, I don't think reviewing is supposed to be, do I agree with you or disagree with you? I thought reviewing was supposed to be, are the thoughts coherent and put together in a clear fashion? Are the claims backed up with evidence?
yes,
Can I follow the chain of reasoning?
yes,
And you could have all those things, but still disagree. I still think that should be published because it's publishing it into the intellectual conversation of academia.
yes,
So, but that's that's another thing I could probably talk about separately.
yeah, yes,
But I want to ask you again. You mentioned it a little bit about the current research, and in your paper, you do talk about some emerging or some new areas of research that are happening in Latin America that are kind of like the current wave of research happening. I wonder if you want to just say a little bit more about what's happening right now, or if you see something that you think the field needs to pursue in the next few years. And maybe some of it's in the special issue if we look at other articles in the special issue, but
Oh, well, I will say Latin American scholars are active in well-established areas like mathematical modeling or mathematics teacher education, problem solving, undergraduate mathematics education, statistics education,
hmm.
the use of digital technologies, like well, very well-established areas in our field. But as I said before, there is increasing attention to sociopolitical issues such as race, gender, multilingualism, and decolonial perspectives. And I think these socio-political aspects of math education are important for educating the future generation of citizens. I mean, in order to give maintenance to democratic societies and prepare young people to be part of these kind of societies and give them maintenance, it's important to continue investigating these issues. I think the fields should continue developing research that connects mathematics education with broader social challenges. But I think as a community, we should also build a stronger collaborations, international collaboration and cross-national collaborations. I think it's not possible to continue like we are now, giving voice to only some regions of the world and ignoring other problematics and voices and ideas. So I think we need more real international collaborations. I will say
Mm.
yes.
And there are some nice examples of that. Like in your article, you talked about I think it was a French scholar and then somebody from South America, I think, that had done they kind of shared notes and they kind of analyzed things together. And actually, in my next podcast episode, I'm going to have a guest from Mexico and a guest from Australia who've been kind of comparing things, Mexico and Australia, and seeing whether some of the same trends or same tensions are happening. So, yeah, I definitely am right there with you on the value of really comparing things across national contexts.
Yes, Sam, I think we should do more of that. Otherwise, we are losing some richness of ideas that the different regions in the world, and here we are talking about the special case of Latin America, but
Hmm.
I'm sure people in other regions in the world are thinking, yeah, we also have ideas to offer
Hmm.
to the international discussion, right? So, yes, I think otherwise we are losing richness as a community, Sam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate talking about that. And again, in ZDM, this article is open access, and people can check out the other articles in the issue from ZDM
Yeah.
or ZDM to be international. But I also, while you're here, I want to ask you also just about other aspects of your work. Is there other things on your mind when you're doing your own work, or is there something else that you are kind of in the process of analyzing or thinking about in math ed? Just, I want to give you a chance to speak even outside this article.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. I'm very, in general, Sam, I'm interested in social and political aspects of math education, but also in the use of digital technologies.
Oh, wow. So you've got a lot to dig into right now.
Yes, so I have a very different interest in the field, but giving you more particular examples, I'm thinking on working on a book, for instance, on these Latin American perspectives,
Oh, wow.
because it was difficult to include all the voices in this special issue from ZDM. I mean, the number of papers is in a way small,
Hmm.
and a lot of people is like, oh, I also like to say something. So I'm thinking yeah, trying to produce a book on one of these big editorials. But I'm also working on with very small children. This is a very interesting topic, like kindergarten level children,
Hmm.
on the ideas about what mathematics is and what is mathematics useful for. And it's very interesting. Some what these small kids,
Yeah.
we interviewed them, we asked them to do drawings, and you can see that at a very early age, they already are receiving influence, not always positive influence of
Mm.
what mathematics is from the discussions they have at home or looking at the publicity, and it's very interesting, son.
Hmm.
And I'm also working on computational programming, the use of computational programming for understanding key concepts in linear algebra, like vector space.
Oh, wow. So you're going both ends of the age level
Yes,
there.
yes, exactly.
Unless you're having those kindergartners do some linear programming or I don't know.
No, no, not yet, not yet. And I also have a postdoc now who is doing with me some research Of course, artificial intelligence,
Yeah, yeah,
especially on the role of intelligence as a source of help for students.
yeah.
We have discovered that a lot of the students are going there for looking for answers when they have doubts or when they need to solve a problem or dealing with homework, something like they usually go there, but we are interested in not only how they use them, how they know when to trust, for instance, the answer of the chat or whatever they are using.
Hmm.
Some we are working on that aspects, how the chat gives them feedback and what kind of feedback they get from the chat. And
Yeah.
we are working on these things. So now I'm getting stressed just on thinking all the things I have to do next year. But
2026 is going to be busy, sounds
yes,
like.
yes, but it's fun. It's very fun to have this
Yeah,
broad interest, Sam.
yeah.
Yeah.
But for my last question, though, I'm going to ask you, though, to imagine if you just did not do any of that. So I know you're enjoying the busyness and you're very interested in the in those things, but if you weren't doing mathematics education at all, is there something else you could imagine yourself doing as an alternative?
Yeah, this is thank you for this question. Is yeah, it made me think about the things that I really would have liked to do. This is maybe a fanciful answer, Sam, but
Sure, sure.
yeah, I would have liked to be a skateboarder.
Oh,
When I
wow.
was younger, well, when I was young, I practiced the sport many years.
Hmm.
I was not very good at this, but I had a lot of fun, and yeah, that will be great. And I mean, Americans, they are very good at this, and it was very. Now it's in the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
I would have liked to have a career on that.
It's official Olympic sport, and
Yeah.
there's some that get endorsements, and yeah, that can.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But very difficult to get into that level, of course.
Or
But
maybe you could at least be like a skateboard instructor, and you could have,
yeah,
you could teach
yeah,
younger kids how to skateboard and make some money
yeah.
that way.
You can see in the Olympics that this figure is appearing more like the coach.
Yeah, skateboard
Yeah,
coach.
yeah, yeah. And also maybe a chef. Some I like to cook.
Oh, sure.
I'm in charge of the cooking at home during the weekends because usually I'm very busy on weekdays. But
Yeah,
I love to cook, and I have friends that they also enjoy to cook. And we have discussions on knives and procedures and
yeah,
how you cook this, and maybe doing some chef work.
yeah.
What about you, Sam? What?
Well, my first thought though is because when you're just coming from Mexico and talking about cooking, so I love Mexican food. It's my favorite like type of food.
Yeah,
And I know in the US we have a range of things that are called Mexican food. I kind of like all of it. I've been to Mexico, I liked food there. I've been very near Mexico, I liked the food there. And then of course all throughout the US we have Mexican restaurants that are
yeah.
varying degrees of authentic, but I kind of like all of it. It's like it's my favorite kind of thing. But yeah, if I, was completely doing something else, I think I could imagine maybe being doing some music, like composing music,
Okay,
but also maybe doing some music lessons. So I play piano and I play a little bit of guitar as well.
okay.
And so I could imagine teaching some kids that. And I also really enjoy composing music. So what I would really love is kind of helping kids be creative, get ideas out, and then workshop those ideas. Like, okay, you have a cool idea there for a song. How can we turn it into a full song? What layers can we put onto it? What instruments can we put with
Yeah.
it? Like that sort of stuff would be pretty fun.
You made me remind my son. My son is taking piano lessons.
Oh,
He
wonderful.
has been there like 4 years almost, but he's very fond of his teacher. He's like, no, my teacher taught me this, and he studied there, and then
Yeah.
so yes, it's a very nice profession to teach kids about music, and some of them. I mean, I see it with my kid. He's very enthusiastic about his teacher, and
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
that's
very
cool.
thankful with this guy. Yeah,
Yeah. And I also think, in the mind, in the brain, there's actually some really nice connections that happen with especially piano and then connecting to math and math structures and things too.
I have that impression. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some research about this, but when I see my kid, I have that impression that
Yeah.
something is happening in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I've been speaking with Mario Sanchez Aguilar from Mexico City at the National Polytechnic Institute. Mario, thanks so much for taking the time to share your work with us and your ideas.
Thanks to you, Sam.